What's going on, guys, and welcome to another Doctor Who review. Today I'm going to be reviewing the 2023 Christmas special, The Church on Ruby Road. Yes, it is the first full episode for Ncuti Gatwa's 15th Doctor, and of course the introduction to Ruby Sunday. Millie Gibson plays her, the new companion as well. So a big episode, the Christmas special for this year, which sets up what's actually going to be called Season 1. That's a thing that has been talked about now, that the next series of Doctor Who will not be called Series 14. It's going to be called Season 1, which I'm not 100% sure about, but it is what it is. It's really just a naming thing, to be honest. So it is what it is, but yeah, it's something that I'm a little bit like, I don't know. I feel like I'll still kind of be calling it Series 14, but we'll see how all that goes. But yeah, this is basically the setup for that series, and yeah, the proper introduction to Ncuti's Doctor, to Millie Gibson's character of Ruby Sunday, and yeah, let's get straight into it, starting off with the cast. We will, of course, start with Ncuti Gatwa as the Doctor. Really liked him. Of course, we saw a bit of Ncuti's Doctor in The Giggle, the last kind of 15-20 minutes of The Giggle. Of course, he appeared, and he was very good there. And then in this one, yeah, he feels like the Doctor already to me. There's a few little weird bits here and there, which I think I just kind of got to get used to. Like when he was dancing around with the kilt on, that was very silly. And yeah, a little bit weird, but I think that's just what this Doctor is like. I can get behind it. But just the way he talks, the way he says stuff, yeah, he feels like the Doctor already. I mean, more so than Jodie Whittaker did, at least in her first few stories, for sure. He's jumped into that role straight away, and I'm really excited to see more of his Doctor. I think he just portrays it really well. His Doctor's definitely quite a bit different to any previous Doctors, I think, that we've seen. But I'm pretty happy with what I'm seeing so far. I think he's going to be quite a wacky, silly Doctor. And yeah, I think he's going to be really good. Now, Millie Gibson as Ruby Sunday. What did I think of her? Well, I quite liked her. I'm not in love yet, but I thought she was pretty good. Now, she gives me a few different companions, like vibes of different companions. First one is Rose, of course. The original companion from the new series gives me big Rose vibes. Just kind of, I don't know, just the way she acts, and it just feels like Rose, you know? I mean, it is Russell's first companion back, and of course Rose was his first companion when the new series came back, so there's similarities there for sure. Now, she also gives me Clara vibes. I think mainly because she looks a little bit like Clara. She also sounds a little bit like Clara in a way. I mean, they're different accents, I think, but she sounds and looks fairly similar to Jenna Coleman. So I had a little bit, like, in character, she doesn't really remind me of Clara, like character-wise, but just, you know, her appearance and somewhat her voice kind of reminds me of Clara, which, yeah, I mean, I don't really like Clara, so hopefully that doesn't really carry on. But if it is just an appearance thing for me, maybe it's only me that's seeing that, but she really looks like Clara to me, with like blonde-haired Clara. But yeah, from what I've seen so far, I quite like her. She seems pretty good. She's got a little bit of story going with her, with the whole, you know, she's adopted thing. Yeah, a little bit of a trope, I guess. You know, there's always got to be some sort of, you can never just have a normal companion in Doctor Who nowadays, it seems. You know, they've always got to have some story going on with them. I assume that this one, I mean, the main reason it seems like she goes into the TARDIS at the end of the episode is because she now knows that the Doctor can travel back in time, and she wants to, I assume, go and find out who her parents are. So I'm guessing that's going to be the big thing for her character, and I like having something there. A lot, as long as it's not like a super important, thing like Clara or someone, or even Amy, you know, with the whole River Song thing. As long as it's not a massive kind of character thing like that, as long as it is just, you know, she just wants to go back and find out who her family is, I'm pretty okay with that. And in general, I quite like her as a character so far. So on to this episode, a few notes about this one. So of course it's a Christmas special. We haven't had a Christmas special since Twice Upon a Time, Peter Capaldi's regeneration story. So it's been a little while. Get back into it here with RTD, who was always the king of Christmas specials for me. There's none of the Matt Smith ones, apart from I mean, the Snowmen and what is it? His first one, A Christmas Carol. Those two are pretty good. The rest of Stephen Moffat's Christmas specials, I don't really like any of them. Definitely not that good. But you know, RTD's Christmas specials, they're a bit too goofy sometimes, but I quite like that. And as a Christmas special, I like it. So I was interested to see what this one had in store. So let's start off with my first point. Bad things are happening everywhere Ruby is. So one thing that we find out straight away is that Ruby seems to have a lot of bad luck. Her bag breaks and she drops eggs. When she's going off in a taxi, a snowman, almost like a snowman ornament thing, almost crushes her, and all this bad stuff's happening. It turns out that it's actually these goblins who are trying to make this bad stuff happen to her, and that's what's going on there. But I thought that was an interesting little thing at the start, all this bad stuff going on. Now, this was something that I was very excited to see. That is that Mavity, the Mavity gag continues. Now, I thought this was just completely gone. Of course, in Wild Blue Yonder, the second of the 60th anniversary specials, we had that whole thing with Isaac Newton where he said Mavity instead of gravity. And then there was a couple of moments in Wild Blue Yonder where the Doctor and Donna said Mavity instead of gravity. It then didn't really get touched on at all, I don't think, in the giggle. And I just thought, oh, well, this was kind of just a throwaway gag and we're not seeing anything more of it. And I was a little bit disappointed by that. But in this episode, the Doctor says Mavity when he's going up the ladder with the gloves, which we'll talk about in a second. He says Mavity. So I'm guessing something is actually going to come of this. So I'm interested to see what that is, because I honestly thought that they just threw the Mavity thing out the window, but looks like it is still going ahead. So hopefully something actually comes of that. The gloves that grip really well and take all the weight. So I didn't note down what the Doctor called these gloves, but basically when they're climbing up the ladder, Ruby's struggling to hang onto the ladder and the Doctor's like, I've got these gloves, put one glove on, you can grip on with that one glove, and basically that will take all your weight and you don't really have to work at all. I thought that was a cool little thing. A little bit of some people aren't the biggest fans of gadgets that help out, the sonic screwdriver or stuff like that. I didn't actually mention the sonic screwdriver in my notes. I will briefly talk about that in a minute. But yeah, some people don't like, the gadgets that help out, but I quite like these. It helped them climb up the ladder, and it also helped the Doctor later on to pull the goblin ship down onto the church. So I like them as a little thing. As long as we don't see them too often, I think they're a nifty little invention. The musical bit was a bit cringy, but kind of fun with the Doctor and Ruby singing. So because I knew that the whole Goblin song thing was happening, I'd heard about it, I'd actually listened to the Goblin song, and I was a little bit going into this like, I don't know how I feel about this. I'm not really a musical sort of guy, a musical in Doctor Who. I quite like it when, for instance, in the giggle, when you had that Spice Girls bit and, like Sound of Drums with that music bit. And I mean, the Rasputin thing was okay, although a little strange in Power of the Doctor. So I don't mind it when that sort of thing happens. But I was a little bit like, I don't know how I feel about this with the Goblin song. It was just a bit strange. I liked that while they were singing, the Doctor and Ruby were still talking and still doing things. So it did feel like this was happening below them. It wasn't just, I liked that. I thought that was done well. When the Doctor and Ruby started singing themselves, I quite liked it. I don't know. As long as this doesn't become like a thing that happens all the time where, the Doctor's going to burst out into a musical song, I thought it worked quite well here. And I mean, they both sung very well, Shooty and, what's her name? Ruby's actress. I've totally forgotten her name. Millie, that's the name. They both sung very well, and I actually thought it was a pretty cool scene. It was a little bit cringy though, I'm not going to lie, but considering it was a Christmas special, if this was in any other episode, a normal episode, I'd probably not really like it, but because it's a Christmas special, I can live with it. The goblins went back in time to take Ruby as a baby. So the whole thing with these goblins, from what I understand, I've literally only just watched this and I've only watched it once. Something about they wanted to take babies because they feed these babies to the Goblin King, but they can only take babies when there's like a coincidence or something, like bad stuff's happening and there's a coincidence, or it was a little bit strange. I mean, why can't they just come down and grab a baby? I don't really know. I think that was somewhat explained, but it kind of went over my head. But something about, there has to be like a coincidence going on and there has to be bad stuff happening and takes the baby and all this. So the coincidence originally was they were taking Lulu Bo or whatever her name was, the little baby that Ruby's adopted mother adopted on Christmas Eve, and of course Ruby's birthday was also on Christmas Eve, so that was a coincidence, and that gave them the opportunity to come in and take the baby. So maybe that's the thing. Maybe there has to be like a coincidence going on, or else they won't, appear and be able to come in and snatch a baby. I don't really know, something like that. So that was interesting. But yeah, then they ended up, once they saved that baby, they then went back in time, because then there was a coincidence between the Doctor and Ruby about both being adopted and all this other stuff. And then they managed to go back in time somehow and take Ruby as a baby. So I thought that was interesting little thing going on there. I will briefly now mention the sonic screwdriver. Didn't see any real close-up shots of it, but we've seen a few images and stuff before this episode about the new Sonic. What are my thoughts on it? On one hand, I'm happy that they've changed the design of it, but to me, it's not a screwdriver anymore. I don't see how you can call it a sonic screwdriver. It almost looks like a mouse, like a computer mouse, to be honest, to me. I think I'll come to like it a bit more. Yeah, I mean, to me, I'm not the biggest fan of... I like the sonic screwdriver. I'm not one of those people that just absolutely hates it and wants it gone. I like it here and there as long as it's not overused. And I mean, if it's going to do the same stuff that a normal sonic screwdriver would anyway, then I'd probably rather it just stay as the, screwdriver-ish shape. I mean, let's be honest, sonic screwdrivers recently, or to be honest, ever, have never really looked like a screwdriver, but they're at least the shape of a screwdriver, whereas this is literally the shape of a computer mouse. So it's a little bit strange, but I think I'll come to like it, or at least come to deal with it, as long as it's not overused. A classic RTD companion checking out the TARDIS scene. So when Ruby finds the TARDIS to go, find the Doctor, goes inside, does the whole, step outside, walk around it. I thought that just brings me straight back to RTD's companion TARDIS, introductions. Perhaps a little bit cliche and a little bit like we literally do this every time, at least with RTD we do. But it was nice to see that, because I feel like, I don't know, maybe it's just because I can't remember Yaz's and Ryan and Graham's introduction to the TARDIS, but it feels like a while since we've had that sort of introduction, so I quite like that. And then my final point is that the old woman, who I've completely forgotten the name of, but the old woman knows what a TARDIS is? I was very confused about this. So, yeah, that old woman seems to know what a TARDIS is, and she winks at the camera right at the end of the episode. So what's going on there? Is she the woman who took the ring at the end of the giggle? I didn't see her fingernails. Did she have red fingernails? I don't know. She knows what a TARDIS is. She literally says at the end, she's like, do you not know? You don't know what a TARDIS is? And then winks at the camera, and I'm like, what's going on here? Who is this woman? This is interesting. This really hooks me, and I'm like, okay, I didn't really expect much from this woman, and all of a sudden, she seems like she could be a pretty integral part to this next season. So, yeah, very excited to see what that's all about. But yeah, I'm going to be honest, not a whole lot to talk about in this episode. A lot of setup for this new Doctor, for Ruby as a character. The Goblins were fine. They felt quite underused, to be honest. I will be honest, this episode was quite slow, at least to get started. I mean, I know we had to introduce Ruby and everything, but there was a part where I thought, oh, okay, this is quite slow. And then once they actually got to the Goblin ship, that's when I paused it and had a look right, what time are we at here? We were about 18, 19 minutes into the episode at that time. And I thought, it's going a little bit slow, but yeah, and the threat never felt massive. They never usually do in these Christmas specials, to be fair, but It did feel like maybe it could have done with a little bit more, but as a Christmas special, I think it was decent. I think it was good enough. I liked the new Doctor. I fairly well liked the new companion. I want to see more of her, definitely, to form a proper opinion, but I think I can already pretty much say that Ncuti is the Doctor. He fits the role really well, and I'm very excited as to what's going to happen in this first series of his. But anyway, that's going to be it for this video, guys. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed, please go ahead, like, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.